Hello, Rask is here, and it's finally time for part 4 of my Splatoon band lore series. A lot has happened in the past 2.5 years since I made the first 3 parts of the series. Splatoon 3 has introduced several new artists, as well as some returning ones from previous games. We also have officially localized names for every band member from Splatoon 1 and 2, as well as for everyone so far in Splatoon 3. As I am making this video, Splatoon 3 is still in the midst of its updates, so here's the plan for this video. First, I'm going to go over most of the bands that I talked about in the previous 3 videos, basically just going over new localized names, and if it applies, sharing any info that I missed. For bands that have returned in some form to Splatoon 3, I will also talk about what they've been up to. Then I will talk about bands that were revealed in Splatoon 3. I'll only talk about musicians that have appeared prior to Splatoon 3's DLC, Side Order. After Splatoon 3 finishes its updates, I'll go over information revealed during and after Side Order, as well as Splatoon 3's minor or unseen musicians in a future video. All of these band members' names, as well as some info on each of them, has been shared officially in English for the first time on the website Splatoon Base. For the bands of Splatoon 1 and 2, most of the biographies are almost exactly the same as what was written in the Haikara art book, which I had been using as a source for the first 3 videos of this series, so no need to go over that same information twice. Alright, let's get into it. Starting with the Splatoon 1 bands. Again. First, Squid Squad. As I mentioned in part 1, their names are based around sushi, Namida being a kind of wasabi, Ichiya being fermented sushi, Ikan coming from a counting unit for sushi, and Murasaki being soy sauce. And with the official localization, their names are mostly the same, except Namida being shortened to Nami, and Ikan is now Quinn, which has nothing to do with sushi, but I guess we have to live with this. One tidbit that I did not talk about: in a slide shown in the Splatoon presentation at the Game Developers Conference in 2018, we can see at one point in Splatoon's development, Squid Squad had a different name, even reflected on the album cover: Squid Scat. In a musical sense, to scat is to sing improvisational nonsense words to imitate an instrument. And this naming ties into how Splatoon's songs are also just a lot of gibberish vocals. But with other meanings of scat, I think we can take a guess why that name didn't get used. In Splatoon 3, following Quinn's departure from the band, Nami, Ichiya, and Murasaki have started over in the Splatlands with a new bassist and a new name: Front Row. They hide their faces on the album jacket, with Ichiya going by 001 Night, as the word Ichiya has a literal meaning of one night, Nami as 2 Wasabi, Murasaki as 3 Sauce, and the bassist going by 4 Clam. The only thing we know about this new bassist is that 1, he's obviously a clam, and 2, he is small in stature. The band made a sudden debut in spring 2022 of the Mollusk era through the indie label Agati. Agati is a word that can refer to the green tea you get at sushi places, so more sushi theming, of course. According to Splatoon Base, despite the hiding and turning down of most media appearances, this band has managed to storm the charts based on their live performance cred alone. The reason they started over as a masked band might be because they want audiences to look past their popularity and judge them for what they're capable of now. I believe this is implying why they called one of their songs See Me Now. The Splatoon 3 album jacket reveals more information in an article devoted to the band. This article, as well as other articles in the Splatoon 3 album jacket, was largely translated by Magical Girl Fia and can be read freely on Wikipedia. This article says that it is commonly believed that the creative differences between Ichiya and Quinn led to an argument so heated that they ended up shooting each other in the head with ink. After that, Quinn just stopped showing up to the studio entirely, and the band fell apart from there. Quinn was later asked if there's a chance of him rejoining Squid Squad, to which he responded with, "That's a good question," and left the room never to return. Murasaki apparently gave the bartender of a bar he frequented a vague, "if we do it, we do it, and if we don't, we don't" kind of answer in regards to a Squid Squad reunion. While Front Row has moved their base of operations to the Splatlands, they strangely haven't been promoting in the main city of Splatsville. Perhaps this is because of a plagiarism controversy going on regarding Squid Squad's song, Now or Never, where the band Seaside is claiming that they made it first. Front Row isn't even playing songs from the Squid Squad era anymore, and the group has no comment on this matter. Baker, Seaside's vocalist, reveals that Ichiya was actually born and raised in the Splatlands, and that the two went to school together. He has more to say about this plagiarism thing, which I'll talk about later in Seaside's part. So that's all for now on Front Row and Squid Squad. Now for Chirpy Chips. A lot has happened with these guys in Splatoon 3, especially with our vocalist here. Though first I want to talk about their Japanese name etymologies, which I didn't know when making part 1. Their names are actually references to waveforms. Paruko comes from parusu, or pulse. Shikaku literally means square, in reference to square waves, which is a kind of pulse wave. Ryan comes from the English word triangle, in reference to triangle waves, and noiji comes from noise. Chiptune music is basically made by manipulating the sound chips used in retro video game machines. The names of the Chirpy Chips members may be based on the sound chip for the NES, which uses 5 channels to create sounds. 2 channels for pulse waves, 1 for triangle waves, 1 for noise, and then another modulator. For the localized names, Shikaku is now Sid, Noiji is now Clash, Paruko is now Harmony, and Ryan is now Orion. Harmony is of course a music term, and Clash is a loud noise, also there's a famous punk band called The Clash. Sid may be in reference to the sound chip from the Commodore 64 called the SID65A1, or Sound Interface Device. And Orion just sounds similar to Ryan, but there is a music production software of the same name. Now as we know, Harmony has been up to things since the time of Splatoon 2. She has been frequenting a store called Hotlantis in Splatsville, and has ended up running in lieu of the often absent manager, Barry C. From her page in the Splatoon 3 art book, we learn that she's 21 years old, meaning that she is around 14 during Splatoon 1 and 16 or so during Splatoon 2. We also learn that the source of her clownfish's misery is not from being particularly protected by her hair. So with Harmony running the store, what's been up with the band in that time? Well, apparently there was some drama, meaning maybe they got into a fight or something and possibly even broke up the band for a bit. Just kidding, that didn't happen. In an April 2023 interview for Famitsu magazine, art director Seita Inoue said that Harmony has been an active part of Chirpy Chips this whole time, but not on a regular basis with all the time she spends in Hotlantis. But she does sing when she feels like it. So it doesn't seem like Chirpy Chips officially broke up at all between Splatoon 2 and 3. And the Japanese version of that tweet says they were just chillin', and it emphasizes that they're very casual about their music and release things at their own pace. Either way, Chirpy Chips released 2 new songs for Splatoon 3, No Quarters and Slopping Spree. Apparently, Slopping Spree is a song that Harmony hummed while staring off into space, and Orion, the composer, turned it into the chorus's melody. This fact is also mentioned in-game, where it's also revealed that Orion's actual pronouns are they/them, so that's cool. According to Harmony's in-game dialogue in Japanese, Slopping Spree is a song Chirpy Chips would only play at live shows before the band made their proper debut. Speaking of live shows, I did mention this in part 1 that they have flashy live shows, but Splatoon Base reveals that this flashiness is literal, as the band members themselves glow in sync with the music at these concerts. The wording choices and the fact that this is Splatoon makes me think this is a bioluminescence thing. Next, High Tide Era. Where have they been since Splatoon 2? There they are. The localized names are the same as the Japanese names. I have nothing more to say about them. High Tide Era, I miss you. DJ Leaffish has made one new version of the song Lookin' Fresh for Hotlantis in Inkopolis Plaza. That is all. Bob Dub. I described this obvious Bob Marley reference in part 1 as an individual musician, but now we have outright confirmation this reggae band consists of 3 Inklings, including a drummer and a guitarist, which should have been obvious from the album art. According to Splatoon Base, their song Double Bath is said to help focus the minds of Inklings who are preparing for battle, as it makes them feel like they're diving deep into the sea. Now, on to Splatoon 2 bands. Again. As for Wet Floor, aside from localized names, nothing's really happened with these guys. Tsumabushi's name etymology I got wrong in part 2. His name actually comes from hitsumabushi, which is a dish of eel on rice, but his localized name is Neil, because he's an eel. As for the other band members, Kagi's name likely comes from Kagiika, which is the Japanese hooked squid, and his name has been localized to Keaton. Ryan's name was trickier to figure out, so sushi chefs have a secret counting system for when they don't want customers to know what numbers they're talking about. Like if there's no prices listed and the chefs want to charge customers different prices for different parts of the same fish. In this counting system, Ryan represents the number 2, which comes from the Chinese word for this number. This being the source of her name would make sense considering 1. Sushi theming, Splatoon is full of seafood references, and 2. Wet Floor is Splatoon 2's main band. Alternatively, Ryan as a proper name in kanji is written like this. Normally this kanji is pronounced like Hari, and a Hariika is the name for the golden cuttlefish. None of this matters because her name is Riley now. Mizore has been shortened to Mizo, and Kazami has become Candy, because she's a candy crab. With Splatoon 3, Omega 3 is still active and making music. We now even get to fight Salmonids next to a place where they perform. The stage Jammin' Salmon Junction is a defunct highway that has been repurposed into a concert venue with all kinds of pipes and horns sticking out, and you can see a big neon sign with a logo on it that matches the one on the band's DJ table. However, we haven't gotten much new info on the band members themselves besides their localized names, which are quite close to the old fan-translated names. I realized I never actually went into the meaning behind their names, so let's start with that. The firstborn, child of Alkin, the hidden blade of Yakiharas. The algin in the Japanese name refers to alginic acid, which is a carbohydrate found in brown algae. The alkin in the English name is a compound found in many different plants as well as sponges and corals. Yakiharasu is grilled fish belly, usually salmon. The valiant green flame born in Jikokudani. There are a few places in Japan called Jikokudani or Hell Valley, named for how steam vents and hot springs form in those areas due to volcanic activity. So the valiant green flame must have been born in a place like that. The faithful servant of the true salmon emperor Hizunamasu. Hizunamasu is a dish made from the cartilage of a salmon's head, all cut up and mixed with daikon and seasoned with vinegar. This also implies salmonids have or had emperors at some point in their history. Omega 3 has released a few new tracks for Salmon Run Next Wave, Toxic Anoxic, Frothy Waters, as well as Bait and Click, a chaotic remix of Seaside's Clickbait. In part 2, I went into the meanings behind Omega 3's song names, so for consistency's sake, I'll do it this time too. The Japanese names of Omega 3 songs use a lot of alliteration and rhyming and uncommon words, and I realize the English names do this too, so props to the localization team for that. Toxic Anoxic, the song played during Extra Wave, is called Gaga, or rugged, like for describing mountains. Frothy Waters, which plays during Goldie Seeking, Mudmouth Eruptions, Giant Tornadoes, and Mothership Waves, is called Undonkon, a phrase that represents the 3 keys to success: luck, patience, and perseverance. Bait and Click is Kagon, which means exaggeration or overstating, and that is what clickbait is, isn't it? Speaking of salmon, time to talk about the Grizzco Industries music again. There are some new tracks in Splatoon 3, a new mix of Happy Little Workers, new victory themes, a Grizzco version of the Anarchy Splatcast music, and bear with me, because Mr. Grizz is a literal fucking bear. But never mind that, because here what matters is Return of the Mammalians possibly gave us the origin to the tune for Happy Little Workers. During the rocket launch sequence, alongside the countdown which is spoken in English, we can also hear a horn rendition of Happy Little Workers. With how this plays alongside this English language countdown, this could mean that this melody is one that was made by humans in Splatoon's world, and Mr. Grizz borrowed it for the creation of the song Happy Little Workers. However, we still don't have confirmation on exactly who is making this music, as again, Mr. Grizz hired someone else to make his music. Maybe it was Orca, or maybe it was some Octarians that he kidnapped, or maybe he's just sending MP3 samples of his laugh and a few bucks to unsuspecting musicians on the internet like, here, make me some bangers, also I get to keep all the rights to it. But that's just a theory. A gink theory. For the localized names, Karen and Yoko are the same as in Japanese. Kitamura is as well, and what I didn't mention last time is that her name comes from a kind of urchin called Kitamurasaki Uni. Bibi is now called Zuzu, which seems to come from her instrument, the kazoo. Mayaya has been shortened to Maya, and Aachin, whose name comes from the English word urchin, has been localized to Uni, which comes from the Japanese word for urchin, uni. In Splatoon 3, Yoko has taken her trumpet and quickly formed a 7-member ska band called Yoko and the Gold Bazookas. This band chaotically mixes the old and the new and has been soaring in popularity. Uni and Kitamura from Ink Theory have returned on the bass and drums respectively, but they have some new friends. According to Splatoon Bass, due to her educational background in music, Yoko used to focus on polished, virtuosic performances. After coming to Inkopolis, that doesn't look right. After coming to Splatsville to reinvent herself, she wound up in a jam session with her future new bandmates, and everybody just clicked. Yoko's new friends don't have much information yet, but I'll do what I can for now. Tau Blue is an octoling on the trombone, who appears to be a blue-ringed octopus. The only mention of blue-ringed octopuses in Splatoon prior to this was in some concept art for Octotroopers in Splatoon 2's art book, so it's cool to finally see what a proper blue-ringed octopus looks like in Splatoon. Regarding the texturing on their tentacles, I saw speculation that they're a fuzzy octoling. I really do not think that is the case, putting my money on that being papillae, which are bumpy protrusions on octopus skin that they use for camouflage. Regarding their name, their Japanese name is Hyodo Tao. If we were to take the kanji of their name apart literally, the Hyo means soldier or warfare, and the Do means head. I believe this name was chosen for 2 reasons. One being that blue-ringed octopuses have a lethal, venomous bite. Warfare is associated with death, and a bite comes from the head. The second reason is that Hyodo sounds similar to Hyomondako, or the blue-ringed octopus. Tosh is the band's baritone saxophonist. Their species is unconfirmed, but it seems like they are a blue button, which looks like a jellyfish but isn't really a jellyfish, but rather a colony of hydrozoan polyps. If you're familiar with the Portuguese Manowar, it's more like that. Their Japanese name is Toxie, which comes from the word toxins, and the tendrils of the blue button are full of stinging toxins. Martin plays either the organ or guitar, it's not confirmed which right now. They are a Taunius borealis, which is a strange-looking species of deep-sea glass squid. This marks the first time that we've seen a sapient species of squid in Splatoon that isn't an inkling, which is actually something I'd been hoping to see, so that's cool. Their Japanese name is Kitano, which comes from Kitano Kujaku Ika, which is the name of that aforementioned species of squid. Jessica also plays either the organ or guitar, not confirmed which. Their Japanese name is Toguro, which comes from the ram's horn squid, Toguro koika. This odd deep-sea cephalopod isn't truly a squid, but part of its own order. Since Jessica doesn't have any of the traits of the species incorporated in their design, I think they're just a regular inkling squid and are merely named after the ram's horn squid. For bottom feeders, they still have all the matching last names, but in English, that shared last name is not bottom, but feeder. Finn and Tangle keep the same first name between languages, but Fuka Bottom is now John Feeder, Muruta Bottom is now Murdoch Feeder, and Blow Bottom is now, thank God, Birdie Feeder. Despair. A bit bothersome because we already had an official posting in English saying their names were Ikan and Warabi, but it's been changed. They're Quinn and Mashup now. Sashimori's Carla, Liu Cheng, and Paul's names are all still the same, except Taichi Sawaberu is now Myron Ronnie Swamps. Something I'd like to mention, the info on the Splatoon base website talks about how Sashimori kicked out their domineering vocalist, but here the vocalist is referred to as a he. I saw that this caused some confusion because it was previously implied that this vocalist is likely Pearl before she joined Off the Hook. So does this information prove that the vocalist is actually not Pearl? Well, no. If you saw my video on Splatoon base, also just a few minutes ago, there are several mistranslations on this website, and this is one of them. In the Japanese version of this page, the gender of this old vocalist is kept ambiguous. Turquoise October has produced one new song for Splatoon 3, Crater Ader's Routine, which feels like a parody of itself and other Turquoise October songs with the Dalai Lama-esque vocals. on the topic of Turquoise October, so there's this label that's on the bottom left corner of their Splatoon 2 album cover. Some may know about this already, but this same label is seen on the album covers for several other artists, notably the Squid Sisters as well, and it resembles a parental advisory label. But there's another layer to this label that I think even less people know about. If you look closer at this label, this nonsense Inkling language text is actually supposed to be mimicking Japanese katakana. And this reads, Nagamatsu Ryo. Ryo Nagamatsu is the name of the real-world composer behind a large amount of songs for the Splatoon series, as well as tracks for several other Nintendo games, starting from the Wii era up until his leaving of the company in 2023. This is the man who brought us bangers like Coconut Mall. What a legend. The label on the Squid Sisters album is actually a little bit different, and the text seems to be mimicking Fujie Shaiho Si. This is in reference to Shaiho Shai, the in-universe producer for the Squid Sisters, as well as the real-life composer behind the Squid Sisters songs and more, Shiho Fujii. I think now would be a good time to talk about what is essentially Turquoise October's fuzzy equivalent in Return of the Mammalians, Octoplush. The mammalized Octarian, or Octarians, in Octoplush might not be the same as those behind Turquoise October, but like Turquoise October, the identity, or identities, of those behind Octoplush is a mystery, and their music gives the Octarians a beat to keep in step with. The Japanese name of Octoplush is Molfate, which comes from the word mofu mofu, which means fluffy, and of course the number 8, because octopuses. Octoplush is responsible for the music that plays within Alterna's levels. There's one song of theirs that I find noteworthy, titled Number 35, Caught. As fans were quick to notice, this follows the same naming scheme of the songs by Deadfish. Did Deadfish get caught and turn fuzzy? Maybe. That, or there's just a Deadfish fan in Octoplush. Speaking of Deadfish, they have been elevated from a fan-favorite minor character to an actual story-relevant character. I'm sure we're going to learn more about them in side order, so I'm going to wait until part 5 to talk about them. Keeping with this topic of musicians from story modes, I'd like to go over the human musicians. I mean, yes, of course, all of Splatoon's music is made by humans, but I mean the ones made by the humans that lived and died in Alterna 12,000 years prior to the events of Splatoon. Each of these artists have one song with 4 phases, depending on the number of gold records collected. These artists and songs are Stars in the Deep, with the song Sandcastles, which plays in Future Utopia Island, Mimicry, with Sudden Depth, which plays in Cozy and Safe Factory, Washout with Two Shadows in the Sun, plays in Cryogenic Hopetown, Firefly with the song Dead Sea, which plays in Landfill Dreamland, On the Clock with Whirlpool Tune in Ecoforest Tree Hills, and Anxiety Society with Hyperdiver, which plays in the Happiness Research Lab. It's unknown how many people are in each band, except that the band Mimicry seems to have 5 people. Physical copies of each of these bands' albums can be found on the ground in-game in the respective sites their music plays, with each album having a modeled front and backside. Any further information about these bands has presumably been lost to time. Now it's time to talk about a certain group that's full of Splatland spirit, Seaside. This trio grew up without a formal musical education, and they've taken the spotlight through raw sensibility and ambition alone. As rowdy as they may seem, they deliver a tight, heavy sound that's full of life. They never doubt in the slightest that they are the best band. They cover other artists' songs without permission, sometimes claiming that they did it better. Beika is one of the vocalists as well as the bassist. His name comes from the Japanese name for the Becca squid. His English name just sounds similar to the Japanese one, and it's Baker. Now Seaside, or none of Splatoon 3's new bands for that matter, have nice neat biographies about the members like there is in the Haikatawaka art book. For now, much of what we can get of Baker's characterization are from his tweets in the Splatoon 3 album jacket. From his tweets, we can see that he has a lot of attitude. He talks about the process behind a couple of the songs, his bandmates, and some of his feelings towards other bands. He mentions that he enjoys the fact that other groups are covering their song, Clickbait, especially Omega 3's Bait and Click, which he says, "It was so incomprehensible that I couldn't help but laugh at it." In true Splatlandian fashion, he finds the music scene of Inkopolis pretentious. With the exception of Bottom Feeders, he thinks they're cool and he wants to hang out with Finn. Oh, very important. He has beef with Ichiya. In a series of drunk tweets, Baker reveals that Ichiya grew up in the Splatlands and they went to school together. After Ichiya moved to Inkopolis and formed Squid Squad, Baker tried listening to their music and thought they sounded sickeningly soft. This got 75,000 retweets on Squid Twitter, and compared to the ratio of 52,000 likes, you can bet they were beating his ass in the quote retweets for Squid Squad hate. The group covered Squid Squad's Splatak without permission, not out of respect, but because they thought they could do it better. In the case of Now or Never, he insists that it's not a cover and that it was actually Seaside's song first, and that Squid Squad took the song before Seaside properly released their own recording of it. As for what he thinks about Front Row, he thinks that Ichiya has some nerve crawling back to the Splatlands, but that their music is not as bad as it was before. Kikura is the other one of Seaside's vocalists, as well as its guitarist. Their name comes from the Japanese reading of their genus for the peacock bass, which we can assume is the kind of fish they are. Their English name is Kiki. According to the tweets made by Baker, Kiki is often late to the studio. It also seems like that they quit the band at one point and came back. They have 3 pet shrimp that we know nothing about, but you can buy little models of these shrimpets for your locker. Also, there's one in the Grisco building for some reason. Yeah, there isn't much info on Kiki yet. This lack of info also applies to Seaside's drummer. Their Japanese name is Uotora. This comes from this kanji name for the long-spined pufferfish. This is supposed to be read like Harisenbon, which is not at all how these kanji characters would normally be read. If you asked a Japanese speaker who wasn't familiar with this word to guess the reading of this combination of characters, they would likely say Uotora. Their English name is Walter. Walter made a demo for what became Paint Scraper, and they even played the guitar and sang in that demo too, so we can clearly hear their voice here. Baker calls this demo ridiculous and charming. Walter's drumming is also what spurred the creation of the song Clickbait. If more info about Seaside's members comes out after I release this video, I'll include it in a future Part 5. One final bit of trivia, if you go to Inkopolis Plaza during Big Run, the usual Calamari Incantation Train jingle no longer plays. Instead, a jingle of Clickbait plays intermittently from the station. Damp Socks featuring Off the Hook is a 5-piece band consisting of Pearl and Marina from Off the Hook, as well as some young, unknown talents that they've scouted out on their world tour. Their Japanese name is not Damp Socks, but Busy Vacation, which I don't know why they changed it. According to Marina in an interview in the Splatoon 3 album jacket, the group's theme was to try and cross the lines of typicality with their unconventional and challenging songs. The first song the group wrote was Tentacle to the Metal, which, during their first practice, the strings on all their instruments broke. Now, Pearl was the one who took the lead in coordinating this band. At first, Pearl was just the producer, and then she hopped in and joined the band. The group all started after there was a little musical clash between Pearl and Marina. While Marina was satisfied with just continuing doing music as is, Pearl was feeling unfulfilled and disappeared for a bit. During her disappearance, she spent a lot of time digging around online for rock music, which is something that she had always wanted to perform. The next time Marina heard from Pearl was after Pearl had rounded up the fresh talent that made up Damp Socks. Marina describes the Damp Socks members as good and diligent people, and to make the most of their unique talents, Pearl leaves some things up to them. I said at the start of this series, not gonna talk about the story of Off the Hook, but now I have to talk about Off the Hook. So I'll only talk about the new info that is relevant to their appearance in this band. But yeah, Pearl and Marina are the vocalists of the band, with Marina also on the piano. Instead of her usual rapping, Pearl does more singing. Marina initially cut back on her vocal parts, but after Pearl's encouragement, she went crazy with it. According to the Splatoon 3 art book, their outfits are space-themed because Pearl was like, "World tour? Nah, we're going to space." Her jacket is made from actual spacesuit material and costs 200 million G. Assuming Splatoon's money is akin to Japanese yen, this is a lot of money. Meanwhile, on their world tour, Marina has been booking venues, managing ticket sales, and making bentos. Vinimac is a mackerel on the guitar. Their Japanese name, Kizushi, comes from a vinegared fish dish of the same name, usually made from mackerel. John Goose is an anglerfish on the base. Their Japanese name is Ando Yoji, which seems to be a play on Anko, or the goosefish family, which is within the anglerfish order. This also explains the name John Goose. Garrus is an octopus on the drums. Their Japanese name is Akashi, which comes from akashiyaki, an octopus dumpling dish that's similar to takoyaki except eggier. It's unclear if they're an octoling in octopus form like DJ Octavio, or if they're a severed tentacle that's developed in such a way, or just some other species. Yeah, there just isn't much info on the Damp Socks crew. There is concept art for them in the Splatoon 3 art book though, and while we're at it, here's the Pearl Marina concept art. H2O is a band that recently formed as of Splatoon 3's 2023 Drizzle season. This duo hails from Greater Inkopolis, and have already attracted tons of attention despite their recency. This attention came after a local radio station in the Splatlands gave one of their songs, Aquasonic, heavy radio play. The rock-loving youths of the Splatlands find their pretentious lyrics and visuals kind of annoying and yet fresh. Lionel is an octoling and the band's vocalist. Their Japanese name is Shima, which comes from Shimadako, the ornate octopus. Cory is the guitarist. Their Japanese name is Nagare. This comes from Nagare Hanasango, or anchor coral, which is the kind of coral that they are. What's interesting is that the band members' roles in the band have not been officially confirmed on Splatoon's official Twitter, nor on Splatoon Base. The only reason we know this is through the Inkling language text on their album cover. Much of the text on Splatoon's album covers are just mimicking actual words, or it's just straight up gibberish. So this is a rare exception. Written here in square script, on the left side is Octopasu Tako, vocal, and on the right side is Nagare Hanasango, guitar. This is also how we initially learned what species Cory is. And I think I will wrap up part 4 here. I'll put sources in the description, and if there's any small things that I missed or corrections to make, I'll put it in the pinned comment of this video. And if any more major info comes, well, that will go in the eventual part 5 to this series. Thank you to my Patreon patrons for supporting my channel, I really do appreciate it. I know my uploads have not been as frequent since Splatoon 3 came out. My goal for this year is definitely to create more videos than I did last year. I do have some ideas cooking, so stick around for that, as well as part 5, whenever that happens. Okay, bye!